Hello, my name is Ronan O'Brien. I'm the Communications Director here at the Institute, and I'm here today to discuss the Institute's publication, European Corporation Tax Setting the Record Straight, with Liam Lynch. Liam is Chairman of the CCAB-I Tax Committee and obviously a Chartered Accountants Ireland member. Welcome, Liam. Liam, why this document and I suppose why now?
Okay, there's been a lot happening in Europe over the last while. We've been somewhat focused maybe on our own problems here in Ireland, but in the wider Europe area, there's been a lot of movement as to how Europe is going to develop over the next 10, 20, 30 years. One of the initiatives in that regard has been, over the last while, the publication of the paper on competitiveness by the French and German governments, which talked about tax rates in the EU and also common basis and consolidated basis. Tax rates seem to be dropped on that at the moment, but there's still talk and proposals in there from the political side in relation to a common basis of some description. Equally at the same time, coming from the EU and through the Commission process is a proposal due this week on a common consolidated tax base, and that's due to be published in the next few days. That is, I suppose, been a long-awaited paper and has been something that's been talked about for a while. So there's quite a confluence of political administrative events happening at this moment in time, and we feel that there's a need to inform the debate in relation to where tax is going and our approach to tax, because we need to look at it not in a very narrow self-interest sense, but indeed how tax actually contributes to the fiscal and economic policy of the EU, and what actually is the best way to actually do this as a community, rather than simply having a bun fight, if you like, over should it be this rate or that, but actually have a sober, intelligent debate on the pros and cons of various actions.
And who is this document aimed at, or who are the natural audience for it?
I suppose the natural audience for this document is anyone with an interest in tax policy generally and in the development of the EU, not just in Ireland but right across the entire community. It's aimed at informing and helping the debate as regards where is Europe going from a fiscal policy perspective and from an economic unity perspective, and how tax has a role to play in that and what exactly that role is.
And tell me, what is the core argument or the core position set out in the paper? Are these criticisms of Ireland fair and warranted, or are they unwarranted?
I think that each country in Europe has got their own particular approach to taxation and their own particular approach to corporation tax. There isn't necessarily a huge difference when you actually scrape beneath the surface between what countries might charge individual countries or individual companies from time to time. The criticisms levelled are always levelled entirely on the rate that Ireland charges, as opposed to in relation to the base or other matters, which are much narrower in other EU countries. The criticisms are also based around, is Ireland getting a much fairer share of FDI than other EU countries? The reality seems to be that Ireland is getting a good share of FDI, but not necessarily from other EU countries. And the third and the last part of the debate is that a certain amount in a monetary union, a certain amount of flexibility is required, because taxation is probably the last great lever of fiscal policy. And until you actually have full political, economic and social union across Europe, you can't actually bring all of the taxation systems together. You still need some sort of way at a local country level of pulling that lever to relieve imbalances, to make corrections at local level. Now, I'd admit that maybe Ireland could have done that maybe a little bit better over the last number of years, but still it is the only lever that we have left, and each country has left in doing that.
Okay, it's obviously a complex area. Chartered Accountants Ireland is publishing this paper this week. Where does the debate about corporation tax in the European Union go from here?
Well, I suppose over the last while we've had a number of different contributions to the debate from various different levels within the community. Some of the biggest contributions have been in relation to the Competitiveness Pact, which was a proposal published by the French and German leaders over the last few months, which was a political stream running within the EU. At the same time, with the community mechanism, the Commission is looking to publish this week, in fact, a paper on common consolidated tax base. That paper is likely, though I haven't seen it yet, to propose a common consolidated base across Europe, which would determine both the base in country and also the amount of profits attributable to each country. There is a debate to be had here. This is not a done deal. The idea that you would impose inflexible structures on countries, independent countries within a monetary union, and take away any leverage over economic power seems like a crazy idea. And the whole issue, I think, that the debate has to move on, is move slightly away from the narrow, should everything be at the same rate. It's already been shown in a number of studies that the competitiveness arguments don't stand up. But we need to actually move this onto a discussion on monetary policy, fiscal policy, and what levers countries have to influence those policies. And if it's not going to be the tax and the tax base and the tax rate, what is it going to be? Because you can't take that away without full union.
Is it fair to say that Ireland's problem is with the consolidated nature of the CCCTB as opposed to the common nature?
I think there's two issues there, which, if you don't mind, I'll take them separately, completely separately. In relation to the consolidation, what we need to remember about consolidation, it's a big word for something quite simple. It is about imposing a division of profits for tax across Europe. It's not about simplification. It doesn't simplify anything. All of the proposals we've seen to date on it actually make things more complicated for countries. So therefore, is it good or bad for Ireland? Actually, it's pretty bad for the EU in general. And any surveys that have been shown on it show reductions in tax across the EU by taking that approach, and also reductions in employment across the EU. In relation to the common base, that is, I suppose, an easier sell for Ireland. Ireland, I suppose, doesn't necessarily have a major issue with a common base per se, given that other countries have done more to manipulate the effective tax rate with changes in the base. However, the problem with a common base is that it removes that fiscal lever within a monetary union, and that has got to be bad, certainly for any country that's within the Eurozone.
So, Liam, the last couple of weeks I've seen a few brickbats, I suppose, thrown at Ireland from France and Germany, and in particular in relation to our corporation tax rate. How would Chartered Accountants Ireland respond to those criticisms?
Well, I suppose there's been a number of criticisms levelled against the Irish rate out there, and it's worth bearing in mind that all of the criticisms against Ireland are in relation to the rate, while other countries, including France and Germany, do much more around the base, how much is actually taxable in those countries. And it's interesting to note that France would have the lowest effective rate on companies paying tax in France, while Germany would actually collect the least amount of tax from corporation tax of the three countries. So there's different approaches and different ways of actually taking this on, and I don't think that the level of stone throwing and that, which might work from a local political perspective, is really helpful from a European perspective. What we need to do is we need to sit down and we need to determine a policy for the future of the Union here and do what is best in relation to taxation policy. And what's really important in the midst of that, I know I said it earlier, but it's worth repeating, is to maintain the levers that countries within the euro can have to correct imbalances within their own economies. If those levers are taken away, if decision-making on tax basis and what is taxable and what is not is at Brussels, the decision-making process is centralised, it doesn't react to what's happening in small local economies, and we need to keep those levers. That's really what this is about, rather than, and we need to have a discussion on that.
Thank you very much for your time, Liam.
You're welcome.